It's really a pleasure and an honor to be here with all of you. I'm amazed by the amount of companies, media companies and agencies focused on the Latin American markets, all gathering in one place. So really, really happy about that. So there's no question that for the past 10 years or so, the growth of penetration of luxury labels in Latin America has steadily increased. More and more labels are not only having major presence in Latin American markets, but they are also establishing operations in Latin American countries. So now you can see how countries like Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, Panama, Colombia are all becoming destinations for luxury labels to establish operations. And just as an example of that, for example, Brazil, by 2013, it is expected that Brazil will welcome more than 50 luxury labels. And currently, Mexico represents more than 15% of the total global sales for Hugo Boss. So that's really, that tells you, that dimensionalizes for you a bit the importance of this region for the growth of this category. But what's the reason for this growth, and how do luxury companies are currently approaching this new reality in Latin America? So for that, I'm going to just invite our great panelists who are going to share with us their experiences and their points of views about this topic. So with not further ado, I want to introduce you to Diego Stecchi. He is currently the regional director for Latin American Caribbean for the Italian firm Salvatore Ferragamo. He's been working with Ferragamo for the past 18 years, and right now he is responsible for developing the brand and all the investments across Latin American region, which, by the way, represents, along with China, one of the fastest growing regions that the brand is focusing on right now. So welcome, Diego.
Thank you.
Next, we have Carlos Ferrariña, who is CEO and founder of MCF, a consultant firm specialized in the luxury and premium segments. And Carlos is a very well-known and actually very well-respected luxury expert, having worked for more than 10 years developing the business for Louis Vuitton in Latin America. So welcome, Carlos.
Thank you.
And then lastly but not least, Ruth Steems, CEO and founder of Elysians, an exclusive global social network focusing on people who celebrate life, life in style. Ruth has a very strong experience in online media, and as part of his past roles and functions, he was, for example, the general manager of Yahoo Search in Europe. He also worked for KPMG, and he also is a very strong entrepreneur. He has founded a couple of Dutch capital ventures very successfully. So welcome, Ruth. So why don't we start by explaining a bit or providing a bit background of what is the landscape currently of the luxury market in Latin America. Who wants to start? Carlos?
We need, okay, first of all, good morning. Thanks so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think, Carlos, we need to start talking about the completely change in the map of the distribution of luxury in the whole Latin America region. Latin America was a region that the luxury was very concentrated, of course, in Mexico, which is still a very leading country in the region. Argentina, where Buenos Aires used to be the capital of luxury consumption in Latin America. Brazil was a very, very weak country on that, and the rest of the countries, Venezuela used to be very important in some specific categories. But now, Brazil and Mexico, both countries became the leaders of the region. There is a high tendency that Brazil will be leading the region in the years to come. Argentina is not in a very good moment right now. They need to recover. Chile is a very stable market, but very small, but keeps growing. But the very good surprise about Colombia and Peru. Peru is doing terrific, mostly because of everything related to the gastronomy. Everything's changing a lot in the country. And Colombia, it's a very big surprise after Brazil and Mexico, possibly is the third best growth in the whole region. And Colombia, everything related to hospitality, some of the very small cities like Cartagena, Cartagena de las Indias, Cali, Medellin are growing tremendously. So the whole map of the Latin America distribution is really facing a new momentum of opportunities where, of course, Brazil is like booming. The growth of Brazil in the last years are being terrific.
Right.
I think it's also very interesting to have a look at the changing social fabric, like our gentleman before here indicated, and the fact that the consumption of luxury products and premium products is a very high interest process for Latin American population. I think the highest in the world. It's basically buying a luxury product is a stamp of approval of your family that it is climbing socially and that you're moving up in the world. So it's a very, it's almost like a rite of passage into a new world. So there's a lot of interaction going on when people purchase luxury products.
Well, in terms of the experience, has been a very, very strong experience. We have been growing since we established the company in Miami. The company is based originally in Florence, in Italy. It is a family. It was a family only, and we did an IPO in June, so we are a little bit more multinational. We established the regional headquarters in Miami in 2000, and we saw from that moment on very important growth. All over the countries, any years, basically. There was no, even in 2008 and 2009, we experienced very important growth, average more than in any other country in the world. So definitely Latin America for us is very important. The growth is very important and stable, but it's not just for Ferragamo. Mainly the brands that has been over here for longer, that established their presence early 2000 or late 90s, they have been the one taking over the majority, taking advantage of this growth. And we think that this growth is going to stay. It's going to stay for the reason that Ruud was mentioning before. And we opening in Bogota, we open in a store in Peru in June. It's very, very interesting.
Can I just add one thing? I just want to add one thing from Diego and Ruud, because I want to give the perspective also of the business. I think the most important thing by the end of the day, the bottom line is the whole world, they never had Latin America as priority for the business perspectives of the luxury goods in the world. Now, on a very new momentum, all the luxury brands, they need Latin America. So we were never the priority, and now the world needs us. Yes. And I think for the first time, the brands will invest in Latin America, because the major, very strong markets like US and Japan, European countries, they're very weak. So they need China, Asia, and they need us. Yep. Now it's our time.
And that's a very important side. Sorry, Ruud, you wanted to add something?
I was just saying, in my space, the internet business, yes, we have a similar thing. You know, when I worked at Yahoo, the way American internet companies used to think is, okay, we do the US, then we set up an office in London, Germany, France, and then we bang our heads against the Chinese wall. And then they're like, oh shit, this is a whole new world, emerging markets, how do we cope with this? And they go back to the drawing board and they're like panicking. And now we see them, you know, making acquisitions in Dubai, making acquisitions in Latin America. So people, also the big internet companies in our world, see them emerging markets as the next big thing.
So clearly, I mean, there's a clear opportunity, and companies are really exploiting that opportunity, not only in Latin America, but in other emerging markets. But now, talking a bit more and providing some perspective of what is the face or what is the profile of that luxury consumer in Latin America, what do you think Is the desire for luxury among luxury consumers in Latin America similar, or is it different compared to other markets like Europe or even other emerging markets like Asia?
Well, if I can start, we do business in Asia and in the Middle East and also in Latin America. What we see in Latin America is that the social interaction before people make a premium purchase is much higher, because people are expanding their horizons, finding their new identity, and the brands that they purchase, they determine part of their identity and their family's success. So it's a very social process, and people also want to be treated as, almost like kings, because it's such a high interest purchasing process that, and also the after sales process should be is very important.
So definitely they look for the whole package as far as experience goes, right?
Yes.
Diego, does that really resonate well with your business here?
If you look at the consumer, the consumer is more and more a global consumer. We don't see so much of a difference or really radical differences between the consumer in Europe and Latin America. Of course, there is a lot of, the consumer mix that we have in Latin America, and not only Ferragamo, I'm talking about in general, is a little bit younger than the average, and a little bit more on the male side. Our male consumers are, more than in other regions of the world. And that, of course, gives us some differences with other regions. We sell a lot of shoes, and especially that shoes that are classic and very recognizable. This is a little bit the difference with Europe, where you find a little bit more minimalistic consumer. There are a little bit the differences. We sell a lot of ties. I can see the audience, and probably you cannot find from the audience. I'm probably the second guy with a tie in the whole audience. And I feel like the penguins with a tie, but this is, I can tell you that we have, the consumer is a little bit in line with what we get somewhere else.
Do you think you will ever come into a situation where you have to make different products for different markets?
I think there's no more space in the world to do something like that, Ruth. The companies are suffering a lot everywhere in the world to do specific product categories for each country. Of course, it's different when we talk about China, because China is just amazing. So it's very, very difficult to see. They will do special things for special countries, but with a certain period of time, with the dates to start and to finish. There's no way to have a line of production special for that. I want to add that, Carla, that there are some special profile on the Latin America consumers. And I want you to take one comment from Diego. First of all, it's a surprise for the majority of the brand how young the consumers are in Latin America. So most of the countries in Latin America, half of the population is like under 35 years old, which makes a lot of new consumers in the years to come. So the perspective of growth is tremendous when compared to Europe, that is again already on the 55 to 60 years old at the mid-age of the consumption. Another thing which is a surprise for the majority of the brands, it's the level of sophistication and update and contemporary of the Latin American consumers. The majority of the brand, they were used to think in Latin America as a very old-fashioned way, and the consumers, they were not as much contemporary, and now they're very surprised with that. The Brazilians, they became the #1 consumer for luxury goods in Miami, #1 consumers in New York for luxury, the Brazilians. Colombians and Peruvians, they are #1 consumers for luxury goods in Panama, and they become more and more important in the worldwide base. So they're very surprised with enthusiasm. The Latin people, they buy luxury with a lot of enthusiasm, no guilt at all, and with a lot of high level of sophistication understanding. It's a completely change in the way that they used to think about Latin America.
Do you think that there's differences across the different Latin American countries in the way consumers perceive or want to experience some of the luxury labels, or do you think that is more a very consistent behavior and attitude towards luxury goods?
No, of course. We all have a Latin influence, but we do have a very difficult culture, very different culture orientation. Brazilian has no Spanish influence. Some other countries like Mexico have a very high impact from everything that goes along in the American market. When you go to Argentina, Argentina traditionally has the most sophisticated way to understand the consumption society. Argentina used to be a very European oriented. So it really goes along. I think there's one thing that's equally for the whole region, and also another very different thing from the global consumers. We are very service oriented. Major of the customers, they go to the stores and they buy. Not in Latin America. People want to be treated. People want to have affection. People want to have a high level of attention and experience in the way that they are serviced. So the brands, they need to learn how to treat people with a high level of caring and attention in Latin America. But that's a similar thing. That's all the countries, they have very different things, the way to behavior towards the luxury.
No, I know that despite of the fact that Latin American consumers could be seen fairly equal in some senses, regulations and the way the companies can operate depending on the country varies, right? Do you have an example of Ferragamo? Have you encountered different challenges as you try to introduce a brand, for example, in Argentina or in Brazil as opposed to Mexico?
Well, of course, there are some problems linked to the importation and taxes and other stuff, but mainly importation that oblige us to change a little bit the way we face some markets. Argentina and Venezuela are definitely the most difficult market for us. We have strong demand over there, but we have a lot of problems importing merchandise because of the obstacles and red tapes all around. Coming back to the consumer, because I think it is important to highlight that what we see is the consumer being really desirable. I heard the desire as one of the issue of the previous presentation. We coming as luxury brands in this market as the new things, especially talking about some markets. So this desire brings a lot of expectation, if you like. And that is why the service became number one. The way we approach the customer became number one in our strategy, in our consideration of how to structure ourselves in the market. The customer is more and more global, meaning that they know much more than what probably our staff knows inside the store, because they go through internet, they know much more about the product. And so we have to be ready to face this kind of expectation, let's say. And we hope that there are not so many other brands that are coming over, because we like to be somehow alone, or let's say not so many in the market to get the most of it. But again, definitely there is a little bit difference in how to prepare, how we prepare for the service, how to service the customer. It's not just about opening stores, but it's to study a little bit more in depth the consumer attitude, what they do, to use a little bit better what in other markets is not number one in terms of promotional activities. The one-to-one events and direct marketing works much better in Latin America than in other regions.
That's an interesting point, because what we see happen is that in other parts of the world there is a reluctance to go to a branded event, because it's not very cool to go to a branded event. But in Latin America it is very cool, because you're part of the brand's family, the brand's community, and it's like a an endorsement that you are a special customer. So the branded events are very big in Latin America. Do you agree, Carlos?
Oh, absolutely. No, being Brazilian and working in all Latin America region for many, many years, we are party people. No, we like to socialize. We want to have fun. We want to have a good time. We don't buy things because we just have money. We want to have a good time. And we expose that. We demonstrate that. And for some of the very traditional luxury brands, the European one, they need to adjust. And they need to learn that, how to deal with people that have a smile in their face the whole time, and they want to have a good time, either if they work in, if they're buying just a wallet. So now it's the time that they need to learn something from us.
Yep.
And they need to adjust to us. And that will be something unique for us.
And that's a very important sideway, actually, because we talk about the consumer experience, really the desire for the Latin American consumer to really experience and have the best service provided to them, to be treated as VIP, literally. But as the luxury labels try to engage with the consumers, what is the role that media plays? I mean, we are in an event about media, so what is the role that media plays in that engagement? And given the profile and what you have just explained about the Latin American consumer and their behaviors, how is this engagement with media different than in other regions, for example?
Well, you as I said in the beginning, it's a very high interest purchasing process. So there's basically information seeking, what we all do when we buy a luxury product. But then there is a lot of sharing between your friends, information, what do you think, what should I buy this, etc. And then there is, the tasting in real life. Okay, I want to go to events. Is this a community, a brand community that I feel comfortable in? And then finally they make the purchase decision. Then it doesn't stop. Then it begins in service and after sales service, making people, including people in your brand, and then they start advocating that brand to their friends. So it's a very social, viral system.
I want to say something, Carla, that when we talk about media, and let's understand media as like traditional advertisement,
Correct.
internet, social networks, all the ways to impact and communicate with this customer.
Paid media, earned media, exactly.
Everything related to the media way that we understand. When we talk about luxury and we talk about US and the European market, these both destinations of the world, people wake up in the morning in every single country in Europe and they see luxury in their life, not in Latin America. So we need to be educated. We need to be taken by hand to understand what's all of that about. Not only being global to travel all over around. So I can guarantee, and I'm absolutely confident about that no other region in the world will demand a lot of different ways from the luxury companies to interact with their consumers through the media channels. Internet, social networks, traditional advertisement, TV, and so on. Not only because they are powerful tools, but also because they need to be educated. They need to be taken by the hand to understand what it's like 200 years old of tradition, 50 years old of successful play in the world. So it's a way to involve people in a different way.
Diego, is there anything that specifically for Ferragamo you're currently exploring in Latin America to drive better engagement with your consumers?
Well, I think that social media and the social network is very, very important and will be more and more important for not only Ferragamo, for fashion and luxury in general. Yesterday was very interesting, the presentation and the speech, Glenn, I think, from Twitter.
Yes.
When he compared the social network to a party. For a brand, the most important, a luxury brand especially, is the brand is the asset. The image is the asset. So what we need to create a kind of a party in a party. We need to create a kind of exclusive area where we can be able to explain a little bit better, a little bit in depth what the product is, what the brand would like to transmit. And this is difficult to be done in a big parties like what Facebook as a social media can create. But we are looking at this, the social media as very in-depth. It's not easy for us because we need to control our biggest asset, that is our image. But it's definitely one of the biggest challenge for us. We know that it's going to be the number one media for us, probably in short. And what we need from our partners, our media partners, is somehow, as Carlo was saying, somebody can give us the possibility to interact with all the areas, the traditional media, as well as the social networking, the social media, and that kind of.
Yeah.
So why
Would you agree with?
Well, the challenge, I think, is multi-channel communication here, and having one consistent message across a lot of platforms, with the ultimate reward being that you create a group of salespeople, your happy consumers, who share pictures of them wearing your products, going to your parties, driving your cars on Facebook, tagging their friends on a network like Elysian's, our network. So eventually social media is something that it's both at the beginning and both at the end of the marketing mix, but it creates an army of brand advocates who are happy to relay your message to their friends, as long as it is a consistent message that they can understand.
Based on your experience about this multi-channel or integrated approach, do you think right now of any brand, luxury label that is currently doing it right?
Yeah, well, yesterday there was an example of KLM. KLM is very active on, they're also a customer of our company, and they did the World Cup thing with us, but the things they do on Facebook, it's tremendous. They create, I think, hundreds of thousands of followers who love the brand. It's an airline, come on, but they love the brand. So how cool is it that you engage your customers in social media? And it's basically like having a few 100,000 people walking in a shopping street saying, I fly KLM, I love KLM, I love Salvatore Ferragamo. By the way, the store is right there, go there, go there. So that is what KLM is doing very, very well. And Hugo Boss in Sao Paulo is a Grand Hyatt Sao Paulo. There's some brands that are doing good things.
Carlos, you have a point?
I think in a global perspective, there is one brand that everybody needs to be really trying to understand what they're doing. It's Burberry. Burberry was pretty much a dad's brand, and they absolutely revamped everything, and they're becoming almost a paper-free brand. They're doing, I would say, the most fantastic and the most dynamic and extraordinary multi-channel communication platform. Burberry is becoming a very digital-oriented luxury fashion company, which is a very unique thing in the very traditional luxury brands. So Burberry is definitely the very hot brand on the digital, on the internet, on all the multi-channels tools right now.
Yep, I agree.